The first time I even thought something was off was when my youngest, Caleb, brought home a school project on ancestry. He's 12, all full of questions and wonder, building family trees and tracing roots. He kept asking me, "Dad, are we Mexican?" Mrs. Lopez said I might be. I laughed, nervously. I'm Irish-Italian. My wife, Brittany, is German descent. What Mexican? At first, I brushed it off. Kids get ideas. Teachers assume things. But once that thought was planted, it festered. I looked at Caleb. Really looked. His skin had always been a little tanner than mine. His black hair, dark eyes, didn't exactly match mine or Brittany's pale blue. I told myself not to go down that road. I wanted to trust my wife. We'd been married 16 years. High school sweethearts. Built a home. A life. Or so I thought. That night, I sat alone in the garage with a beer and a silent storm in my chest. Something wasn't right. And deep down, I think I already knew. I ordered a DNA test for Caleb, told Brittany it was for fun. She gave me a weird look, but didn't question it. That was mistake number one. Hers, not mine. 2 weeks later, the results came in. Mexican heritage, 47%. I stared at the screen like it had slapped me. Cold fingers gripped my spine. I refreshed the page. I double-checked. Then I walked into the bathroom, locked the door, and screamed into a towel like a madman. I'm not Mexican. My wife's boss, Carlos Martinez, is. A tall, charming, money-soaked piece of corporate slime. Regional VP at her marketing firm. The type of guy who wears silk ties, fake smiles, and cologne strong enough to choke a bull. Brittany had been working under him, with him, for almost 15 years. And suddenly, every suspicious moment I'd buried, every late-night presentation, every business trip that didn't make sense, it all came flooding back like poison. I sat in silence for an hour, just reading that DNA report over and over, and it was like watching the walls of my life melt. But I wasn't stupid. I wasn't going to confront her without more. I needed confirmation. I needed the whole, picture. So I played dumb. For 2 weeks. I told Brittany I'd been promoted, that I'd be traveling more for work. She was thrilled. "We could use the money," she said, eyes lit up like a lying little devil. I kissed her forehead, smiled, and set my plan in motion. I placed a tracker in her car, installed remote access to our home cameras, planted a small voice recorder in the kitchen light fixture. I was patient. I waited. And then, like clockwork, it happened. Thursday, 3:12 p.m. I watched Brittany walk in the front door, heels clicking on the floor, a bottle of red wine in her hand. Not unusual, until he followed behind her. Carlos. In my house. Wearing my cologne. Laughing. They didn't even make it to the bedroom. Right there, on the living room couch where my kids play Minecraft and eat popcorn, she dropped her jacket, pulled him in close, and whispered, "We have a few hours." He thinks I'm picking up groceries. I stopped the video. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't cry. Couldn't scream. I didn't feel human. It wasn't just betrayal. It was theater. She was putting on a show in my home, playing the role of perfect wife while sneaking in her boss to defile the life we built. 15 years. 15 years of lies, and I'd been too blind to see the truth wrapped in perfume and fake smiles. But it got worse. That night, I checked the recorder, and what I heard shattered the last pieces of my sanity. "Carlos, you sure he's not suspicious?" Brittany laughs, please. "Rick, he still believes our first kid is his." Dumb as ever. I almost passed out. That's when the pain turned to something else. Something dark, sharp, focused. I didn't cry. I made a plan. I took samples from both my kids, sent them in for DNA testing under fake names. While I waited, I smiled, kissed her, slept next to her like nothing was wrong. But every night, I whispered in the dark, "You're going to pay for this." 5 days later, the results came back. Neither of them were mine. I remember holding the envelope in my hands, sealed and silent, like it was pulsing with rage. Inside were the official results, confirming what I already knew: neither of my kids were mine. Not biologically, at least, but emotionally, spiritually. Every scraped knee, every bedtime story, every soccer game I stood in the rain for, that was me. Not Carlos. Not any other son of a bitch. Me. Still, the truth hit like a freight train with no brakes. Brittany came home that night wearing her little red dress, the one I bought her for our anniversary. "Felt like dressing up," she said with a fake smile, tossing her purse on the kitchen counter. You won't whine. I looked at her like I was seeing a stranger for the first time. No, not a stranger. A traitor. A fraud. A damn good actress. I've got something better, I said, holding the envelope out. She frowned, confused, then opened it. She barely read past the first line before her face turned sheet white. That's when I saw it, fear, just for a second. Then it vanished, swallowed by her usual smug arrogance. What is this? She asked, already in defensive mode. You tell me, I said quietly. Because last I checked, I didn't have a Mexican grandfather. Her lips tightened. DNA tests aren't always accurate. Try again. She tossed the paper on the counter. You've always been paranoid. Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with work, we'd have. Don't. I stepped closer. You've been screwing your boss for over a decade, Brittany. In my house. On my couch. While I was out breaking my back for this family. You think I wanted this life? She snapped. You think I wanted to marry some blue-collar has-been who never aimed higher than a steady paycheck and weekend barbecues? There it was. The bitch behind the mask. My fists clenched so hard I thought I'd crack bone. You used me, I said. No, she said, crossing her arms. I survived with you. Carlos saw my potential. You never did. That's when something inside me snapped. Not violently. Not explosively. Just final. Like a lock turning. I hope he likes raising my kids, I said calmly. Because you're not seeing them again. Her eyes widened. What the hell is that supposed to mean? I smiled. You'll find out. She lunged toward me, grabbing my arm. You're not taking my children. They're not yours either, I whispered. Not anymore. Then I walked out. I didn't pack a bag. Didn't take anything but my truck keys and the folder of test results. That night, I checked into a cheap motel and sat under the flickering light of a broken lamp, feeling like a ghost. Everything I'd known, everything I believed, was fake. Fabricated. A script I never agreed to read from. But I wasn't broken. Not yet. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Then a private investigator. Then I called in a favor from an old friend in IT who owed me big. By nightfall, I had access to Brittany's work emails, phone logs, GPS data, even texts. And what I found made me sick. She wasn't just having a fling. This was a love affair. Romantic weekends. Fake conferences. Secret bank accounts. Pictures. Notes. One email even said, "When Rick's out of the picture, we'll finally be free." That was all I needed to see. They wanted me gone. Perfect. I'd vanish. But not before they watched everything burn. That night, I sat in the motel parking lot, engine running, mind racing. The heat from the vents couldn't touch the cold crawling through my chest. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the way I was before. No, this was something different. Sharper. Controlled. Like the stillness before a storm. She thought she broke me. Carlos thought he won. My own family knew and said nothing. Every damn one of them watched me walk blind through a lie, year after year. But I had something they didn't. Silence. Patience. And a will to destroy without leaving ashes behind. First thing I did, emptied our joint savings account. Every penny. Transferred it to a new account under a shell name I'd been using for small side gigs and freelance work. Brittany wouldn't notice until next payday. Too busy playing house with her Latin lover. Then I took a trip, off the radar. Rented a cabin 2 states away under a fake name. Disconnected everything. No social media. No phone. Just me, a burner cell, and my old laptop full of damning evidence. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted poetry. I sent a package to Carlos's wife. That's right. The good old corporate charmer was married. 2 kids. Church every Sunday. Image polished like a showroom Benz. Inside the envelope, screenshots, videos, emails, and a personal letter that read, "You deserve to know who's been sleeping in your bed when you're not around." From one betrayed spouse to another. Within a day, I heard through my investigator that Carlos's wife had kicked him out and filed for separation. The fallout at his job? Oh, it was glorious. HR got wind of his workplace relationship. Brittany was called into a disciplinary meeting the same week. But I wasn't done. Next step? My house. I waited until Brittany was out, probably crying on Carlos's lap, both of them wondering why everything was unraveling. I walked in, changed the locks, and left a single box of her things on the porch. Inside, I left 2 things. A copy of the kids' DNA tests. A note that said, "I built this life. You built a fantasy. Now you can both live in it." Then I left. Not just the house. Not just the city. I erased myself. Got a new job using a connection from years back. Small fishing town, off-grid, peaceful. I didn't even tell my best friend where I went. I wanted no pity, no sympathy. I wanted distance. And I got it. But the ghost of her still followed. Some nights I'd lie awake, not because I missed her, but because I couldn't stop replaying it. The lies, the gaslighting. Her voice saying, "You think I wanted this life?" Echoing like venom in my skull. Every moment of doubt I had over the years, every time she made me feel less than, now made perfect, gut-wrenching sense. But the worst? Knowing the kids weren't mine. Not because of biology, but because I didn't get a choice. I gave them everything. My name, my time, my heart. And she took that from me too. But I'd made peace with one thing. They were still innocent. They didn't ask for this. And even if I wasn't their father on paper, I'd been the only real parent they ever had. Still, I couldn't go back. I had to disappear. I had to let her feel the void she created. Cold, merciless, permanent. A month passed before I heard anything. No calls. No texts. Just silence, like I never existed. That's what I wanted. To vanish. To become a question mark in her life she could never answer. But Brittany? She was unraveling. I got updates through my investigator, Greg. Old army buddy. He owed me his life from Kandahar. Now he worked freelance. Quiet, efficient, loyal. "Your wife's been showing up at Carlos's job," he said one night over a secure call. "She caused a scene in the parking lot last week. Screamed something about him using her." I let out a dry laugh. Classic. The same woman who lied to me for 15 years, now crying betrayal because her lover wouldn't destroy his own life for her. Turns out Carlos had no intention of starting fresh with her. His wife, after receiving my little evidence package, filed for divorce, took the kids, the house, and half his assets. Word got out fast, and the board at his firm couldn't ignore the scandal. He was relieved of his duties less than 2 weeks after. No pension, no references. Poetic justice. And Brittany? She tried to salvage her job, but apparently, crying to HR about being manipulated by her boss didn't hold up well when there were emails of her planning hotel getaways and writing things like, "Can't wait to feel you again during our lunch break." She was fired. Publicly. Brutally. The cherry on top? She was now jobless, reputation ruined, and no idea where I was. Greg followed her once, to a courthouse. She tried to file for child support against me. Let that sink in. The same woman who lied about paternity, who built an entire life around deception, wanted me to pay for the children she created with another man. Bold doesn't even begin to describe it. But here's where it gets even better. The court needed confirmation of paternity to proceed. Guess what I had? A certified DNA test. I mailed it in with a single sticky note attached. "Nice try. Case dismissed." I didn't even need to show up. Greg said she cried in the hallway after. Screamed into her phone. Probably calling her mother, the same woman who once told me, "You're lucky to have Brittany. Don't mess it up." Turns out her whole damn family knew. They always knew. When I confronted her mom weeks before I disappeared, she just looked at me and said, "Sometimes people lie to protect what they have." What a joke. No one protected me. No one warned me. I was the loyal idiot funding a life where everyone around me played a part in my humiliation. But I wasn't bitter. Not anymore. Because in that quiet little fishing town, waking up to the sound of gulls and waves instead of fake apologies and the smell of someone else's cologne on my couch, I found peace. I fished in the mornings. Worked construction in the afternoons. Simple life. Clean life. I made friends who didn't ask questions. They just knew me as Rick, the guy who likes his coffee black and his music loud. But the past wasn't gone. Not really. It lingered in the mirror. In every scar I didn't know I had. In every time I caught a father playing with his kid and felt a twist in my gut. But I never reached out. Never called. Not even once. If Brittany wanted to know where I was, she'd have to look at the ashes she stood in and realize she lit the match. It was a rainy Thursday when I wrote the letter. I hadn't planned on it. I was sitting on the dock, watching the fog roll over the bay, when this wave of emotion hit me, sharp and sudden. It wasn't rage or sadness. It was something colder. A bitter kind of clarity. I went back to the cabin, sat at my desk, and started writing. No plan. Just raw truth bleeding out of my hand. It started like this. "Brittany, you don't deserve this letter, but I need to get it out. Not for you, for me." I wrote for hours. About the lies. The little ones. The ones she told with her eyes more than her mouth. I reminded her of our first house, the one we painted together. I told her how I remembered the way she looked the night she said, "I do," and how that woman doesn't exist anymore. Then I wrote about Caleb and Olivia. Not mine by blood, but mine in every other way. I told her the day Caleb scored his first goal in soccer was one of the proudest days of my life, and how I still keep his drawing of me and Dad tucked in my wallet. And then, I wrote this. I would have forgiven you, not for the affair, but for the truth, if you'd given it to me when it still mattered. But you chose 15 years of pretending over one hard conversation. I sealed the letter, addressed it, never mailed it. It still sits in the drawer, under a stack of bills and fishing licenses. A reminder, not of what she did, but of how close I came to letting her poison crawl back into my life. Because deep down, a part of me still missed her. And that was the scariest part. Not the betrayal, not the humiliation, but the memory of loving someone who never existed. The next week, I got an anonymous letter. No return address, no signature, just 4 words, scribbled in shaky handwriting. You left too soon. I burned it, because it reeked of her. Desperation, manipulation, that sick little game she played where she'd flip the script and make me the villain. Like I was the one who walked out without reason. Like I was the coward. But I didn't walk away, I escaped. Still, curiosity got the better of me. I called Greg. Keep tabs on her, I said. 3 days later, he called back. She's in therapy. Alone. Looks like she's drinking a lot. Moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. No job. Carlos left town completely. I nodded, not sure what I felt. Maybe nothing. She is skin about you? Only every day, he said. Apparently she called your old office 12 times last month. Good, I said. Let her wonder. But that night, I dreamed about her. Not the Brittany who tore my world apart. The one from back then. The girl who used to fall asleep on my chest watching old horror movies. The girl who used to write love notes on sticky pads and hide them in my lunchbox. I woke up in a sweat. Because I knew now, that girl never existed. She was a mask. A performance. And I bought a front row ticket to the longest running betrayal of my life. So I got up, made coffee, sat at the dock, and reminded myself that disappearing wasn't the revenge. Living well was. 6 months had passed. The air in the small coastal town had started to shift. Warmer winds, longer days, the scent of salt always lingering. My beard had grown out, my shoulders loosened. Most days I felt like a man again, not a ghost. The pain? Still there. But like an old scar, it stung when poked, but no longer bled. I didn't check in on Brittany often. I didn't need to. But one day, Greg called with something different in his voice. You're not gonna like this, he said. Try me. She's trying to find you. Real hard this time. I let out a slow breath. How hard? She hired a PI. Guy's green. Dumb as hell. But he's making noise. Called your old landlord. Left messages with your cousin in Ohio. I chuckled. She's desperate. She's determined. You want me to handle it? No, I said. Let her try? Let her choke on the silence. But it shook me more than I let on. That night, I went to the bar on the pier, nursed a whiskey neat, and stared out at the waves. The bartender, Nora, a tough woman with steel eyes and a wicked laugh, leaned over. You look like you just saw a ghost, she said. Close, I muttered. My past. She nodded, poured me another. Ghosts don't scare me. It's the living that'll ruin you. Smart woman. A week later, she found me. I was walking through the Saturday market, picking up some fruit, when I felt it. Eyes on my back. I turned and saw her. Brittany, standing 10 feet away, in jeans and a windbreaker, hair tied up like the old days, but her face, tired, worn down. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. But still, the moment she locked eyes with me, she gave that smile. That same crooked, manipulative smile. Rick, she said. My name sounded wrong coming out of her mouth. Leave, I said. I just want to talk. There's nothing to say. Please, just 10 minutes. The market around us kept moving, people buying peaches and candles, kids running with sticky hands. And there we were, 2 broken people standing in the wreckage of a life. I didn't speak. She did. I messed up, she said. I know I did. But I miss you. Not just the comfort. You. The way you looked at me. No one's ever looked at me like that again. Because they see who you really are now, I said flatly. She flinched. You don't understand. Carlos told me he'd leave his wife, he promised. Don't you dare make this about him, I snapped. You had a choice every single day. And you chose him. You chose lies. For 15 goddamn years. Her eyes welled up, but I didn't feel pity. Not anymore. I think about the kids, she whispered. They still ask about you. I clenched my jaw. That hit harder than anything else. I'm not their father, I said. You made sure of that. You were. That's the difference between you and me. I don't fake roles. She reached out, her fingers brushing my sleeve. Rick, please. I stepped back. No. She froze, lips trembling. I didn't vanish because I hated you, I said, voice low. I vanished because if I stayed one more minute in your orbit, I would have lost myself. Tears finally fell. Real ones, maybe. Too late either way. I turned and walked away. Didn't look back. That night, I sat on the dock again. The sky was wide and quiet. Stars spread like a fresh start. She found me, and I still walked away. That's when I realized I'd finally won. The next morning, I expected some kind of fallout. A message. Another desperate plea. Some twisted attempt at closure. But my phone stayed silent, just the way I liked it. Brittany was gone, again, but this time, she hadn't left me. I had left her. And there's a different kind of power in that. It hits differently when you realize you don't need revenge to feel victorious. When you don't yell, don't hit, don't beg. You just leave. You walk away so clean, so quiet. It drives the guilty mad. I knew Brittany wasn't done. People like her never are. She thrived on chaos. She needed someone to blame, to twist, to pull back into her orbit. But I was done being her gravity. Greg called the next evening. She booked a hotel in town. Checked out the same day. Let her go, I said. You sure? She's already gone. I stood outside the cabin after that call, the night wrapping around me like a new skin. The air smelled like pine and ocean mist. I lit a cigarette, even though I'd quit years ago. Just needed the burn, the quiet crackle in the silence. I thought about everything. The kids, the betrayal, the cowardice of people who looked me in the eye and smiled while stabbing me in the back. And you know what stuck with me most? It wasn't Brittany's lies, or Carlos's smug, tan face. It was the look in my son's eyes, Caleb, when he once asked me, "Are you proud of me, Dad?" And I was. So damn proud. That was real. I was real. Even if the blood said otherwise, I gave him what no one else did, a father. And no DNA test can erase that. It took me months to realize I didn't need revenge. I didn't need Brittany to suffer, because she already was. She'd lost the one person who truly believed in her. The man who showed up every day, even when she didn't deserve it. She traded loyalty for lust, love for cheap thrills, stability for whispers and hotel sheets. And now she had nothing. I, on the other hand, had peace. Real, uninterrupted, bone-deep peace. I fished every morning, fixed boats for cash, played poker with old guys at the bar. On Sundays, I helped rebuild the town's old dock. The mayor even joked I should run for local council. People here didn't ask questions. They just accepted me. Rick, the man with rough hands, a quiet laugh, and eyes that carried weight. No one knew what I came from. No one needed to. Because I wasn't that man anymore. The man who cried in motel bathrooms. Who stared at DNA reports like they were execution orders. Who slept next to a woman who smiled with someone else's mouth on her lips. I buried him. Let him go. And what rose in his place wasn't bitter. It wasn't even angry. It was free. So when Greg called again a week later and said, "She's back in town. Wants to talk again," I didn't hesitate. "No. Thought you'd say that," he chuckled. She looked rough. Not my problem anymore. And it wasn't. Because walking away didn't just save me. It destroyed her. She expected screams. Tears. A desperate man begging to understand why. Instead, I gave her nothing. And in that nothing, she found the truth. I was never coming back. It's been 5 years now. 5 long, strange, healing years since I disappeared from the life I once thought was mine. Since the moment I held a DNA test in my hands and realized I'd been living in someone else's fantasy, an illusion crafted with polished lies and lipstick smiles. And still not a day goes by that I don't remember. But the pain? It no longer owns me. I live in a small house near the edge of the bay now. The kind with chipped paint and creaky floors, but it's mine. Everything in it is mine. The tools in the shed. The coffee mug with the chipped rim. The wooden chair I fixed myself. I don't need much. Simplicity is underrated. Some days I see families walk by. fathers holding their children's hands. Sometimes I wonder if Caleb and Olivia remember me, if they ever ask themselves why Dad just vanished, if they hate me, or if, maybe, deep in some buried part of their hearts, they understand that I left not because I stopped loving them, but because I was never allowed to love them truthfully. I left so I wouldn't teach them that loyalty should be repaid with betrayal. Brittany never found me again. Greg said she stopped trying 2 years ago. Word is, she moved to Nevada. Works at a wine bar now. Alone. Still chasing validation in half-empty glasses and strangers' compliments. Carlos. He remarried. Young girl. Moved to Texas. From what I hear, she caught him cheating last year. Some men never change. And me? I changed. I forgave. Not for her. For me. Because hate is heavy. And it doesn't hurt the ones who hurt you. It only keeps you shackled to the past. So I let go. Of the rage. The revenge. The image of her in our living room with her blouse unbuttoned and his belt on the floor. I buried all of it under the quiet of a new life. Sometimes I write. Just for me. Letters I'll never send. Words I'll never say aloud. One of them starts like this. Dear Caleb, you may never read this. You may never know how much I loved you. But every goal you scored, every laugh you gave, every time you called me Dad, those were the realest moments of my life. I hope you become a man who knows how to recognize truth. And when you find it, never let it go. I never blame them. Not even for a second. They were kids caught in a web they didn't weave. And though the bloodline isn't mine, I still carry memories that are. And memories, unlike people, don't betray you. They fade, but they stay honest. One day, maybe I'll run into them. Maybe I'll be an old man sitting on a bench, and Caleb will walk by. And for just a moment, our eyes will meet, and he'll wonder where he's seen me before. And I'll smile, because I'll know. And that will be enough. I took ultimate revenge not by screaming, not by burning the house down, not by sinking to her level, but by walking away with dignity and never looking back. She wanted me broken. Instead, I became untouchable. And that silence I left behind, it still haunts her. Because the loudest revenge in this world is peace.